Lubbock, Texas's Flatland Cavalry dropped Flatland Forever this past Friday, a career-spanning best-of album released on Interscope Records, featuring a lineup of songs from each of their 6 EPs and albums, as well as a selection of never-before-heard songs written over the course of the past 10 years. Flatland Cavalry has become one of the most beloved bands out of the Texas country music scene in the past few years, winning fans over with their fresh yet classic sound, friendly and energetic presence, and their heartfelt, poetic lyrics. Even though they're still young in their career, they've built a large and strong enough discography that a best-of album like this feels warranted. In this video, I'm going to give some thoughts on Flatland Forever as a representation of Flatland Cavalry's career and discography. Since Flatland Forever is a best-of album, this is going to be a little bit different than a typical album review. So I'm going to start by talking about the new songs, then move on to the track list and give my thoughts on what they did and didn't include, and finally at the end give some overall thoughts on the project. Starting with the new songs, it's worth noting that most of these actually aren't new, but rather are older songs that were written during previous projects, but never made it onto a record until now. Rather than just including them to have something new though, Flatland peppers them in chronologically in the album, giving the listener additional context to the era they were written in and the projects that they were left off of. What the band has shared so far about the song 3 Car Garage suggests that it's actually one of the earliest Flatland Cavalry songs, probably written about the same time as Come May or Humble Folks. It's a tribute to their first practice space, which is really cool to look back at that now given the level of success that they've achieved. Like many great bands, Flatland Cavalry had humble beginnings practicing in a garage. It's also a celebration of the simple things in life, finding comfort in having space of your own that you can fill with memories and good company, that you can relax and have a beer in, or party and have a beer in too, and then taking stock of everything you have in life, and regardless of income, how rich you are in terms of friends and good times and just being able to have a great life. It's a very fun song, very well written, and a great lead single to this project. It captures that spirit of looking back over the past decade at what they've accomplished and where they came from. It's also a good representation of Cleto's early songwriting. You can see the seeds being planted for the themes and imagery that he incorporates into his songs today. Next we have Lubbock, which is a love letter to their home city. Cleto originally filmed a performance of this song and put it on YouTube to celebrate Texas Tech basketball making it to the NCAA championship game, hence the reference to victory bells ringing on a Saturday night. It became a fan favorite online, and fans have repeatedly asked them to record and release it, and they finally got their wish on Flatland Forever. The song features classic Cleto Cordero poetic imagery, including lines like, "She'll greet you with a welcome mat of cotton fields and a wind turbine bouquet." Cleto paints a picture of Lubbock so clearly that even if you've never been there, you can picture it very well. I love a song with a good sense of place, and this song drops you right in and takes you on a tour. Along with the geographic and agrarian imagery and Texas Tech references, the song also pays homage to 2 of Lubbock, Texas's most iconic music legends, Buddy Holly and Mac Davis, who the legacy of both I'm sure hang heavy over Flatland's head. It's fun and catchy, but most importantly, it's heartfelt. It's a love letter to the city that made Flatland who they are, and their genuine love for Lubbock is very evident. It feels like in another life this would have been a Panhandler song, and who knows, maybe one day it still will be. Next we move on to Countryman. Lyrically, Countryman actually reminds me of Country Is off of their album Welcome to Countryland. That's a whole lot of countries. It's not exactly the same message, but it falls in the same theme of we might have different perspectives, but we can still live our own lives. Countryman is a call to action to better understand your fellow, wait for it, countrymen. The general theme is we have a lot more in common than we have different, and if we tune out the noise and try and understand each other, we can build a stronger country even if we don't always see eye to eye on everything. It's a good message and one that we probably need a lot more of, but I'll be honest in saying that it wasn't my favorite new song off this album. It might be just that I'm a bit burnt out on political messaging following the election season, but this song didn't really connect to me, even though it came out at a time where this message is probably most crucial. Maybe one day it will, but right now this is my least favorite song off this project. On the flip side, Chasing a Feeling is probably my favorite new song off Flatland Forever. Cleto is reflecting on his journey as a musician and thinking back on the wonder it used to inspire in him, and how he's still chasing that feeling all these years later. I'm probably in the minority here, but I relate to this song a lot as a musician, but I also recognize that this same sense of nostalgia and chasing a feeling can also be applied to winning a championship game with your high school football team, or a lost love you had, or a time in your life where you just felt a greater sense of purpose and wonder. I think a great many of us at a certain point in life start looking back on those times and trying to get back to them somehow. This song feels very classic, like it could have been recorded by an old school crooner. I love the nylon string guitar and the little flourishes of organ throughout it. And the lyrics could stand alone as a poem as well. Twilight glows, midnight winks, and borrowed time ain't stealin'. So I puff a little smoke, pour another drink, still chasing a feeling. Beautiful. This was a great track to end the album on because even though I'm pretty sure it's not a recent composition, it suits this project really well where the band is looking back at where they came from and looking ahead towards the future, still chasing that feeling. My only slight critique of the song that I'm never going to be able to unhear is that the melody is definitely lifted from Oh Christmas Tree, and when I first started listening to it I could kind of hear I was like, oh, this sounds a little familiar, but it became very evident in the whistling at the end to me. I was like, oh yeah, that's what that is. I love it though. I think this is a great song, and overall the new songs add a lot to the album. They contextualize the different eras of the band and what Flatland stands for, and it also gives fans that have been with Flatland for a while something to chew on. All of it serves a purpose. Moving on to the track list, Flatland Forever features a whopping 25 songs, coming in at a 92-minute runtime. Flatland Cavalry is a band that's never really had a hit per se. You could make an argument for In a Life Where We Work Out because it's RIA Gold certified that might be a minor hit, but they're not a band you're going to see in the top 40 of radio. What they do have is a very rich and high-quality catalog of great songs that many of them have become fan favorites over the years. As such, picking just 3 songs per album to communicate to the listener what each project or era was like, and the stylistic choices for each, was always going to be a challenge. In the lead up to release, the band did their best to make the track list a surprise. On Apple Music, where you can normally see the names of songs from upcoming albums, the title's displayed as Come May, Track 1, or Homeland Insecurity, Track 3. I really appreciate their effort to keep the track list discreet. I think it made it much more fun to speculate on what was going to be included in this album. Now that Flatland Forever is out though, was it successful in condensing the band's catalog down into a best-of record? In my opinion, mostly. And please keep in mind, this is just one guy's opinion. Your experience with Flatland Cavalry may be different than my own, so take everything I say here with a grain of salt. And if you disagree with any of my assessments, please let me know in the comments. I love talking about music. Starting with their debut EP Come May, we saw No Shade of Green, Missin' You, and Summertime Love. I think this is a good sampling of that first EP, and actually probably one of the strongest per project track lists in this album. Even though my favorite song on this EP is Ain't Over You Yet, and I would have loved for it to have gone to Spotlight, I don't disagree that these 3 songs showcase the most range sonically, and No Shade of Green and Missing You are still fan favorites that endure in popularity today, so I think they got this pretty right. Next, we take a quick detour over to 3 Car Garage before we head to their debut full-length record, Humble Folks. Off this album, the band chose to highlight One I Want, A Life Where We Work Out, and the title track Humble Folks. This is where it starts to get tricky for me. A Life Where We Work Out was absolutely essential from this album, 100% deserves to be here, absolutely should be there. To me though, the rest of the album has so many essential Flatland Cavalry songs that it's really hard to pick those other 2 spots. I think the title track does communicate the feeling of the record and speaks to Flatland's sense of identity and purpose, and What I Want does feel like it encapsulates something about the band's general feeling. However, so do Tall City Blues or Stomping Grounds or February Snow. I don't totally disagree with this track list, but I'm also not totally satisfied by it. But with the limitation of only picking 3 songs per album, there was a very low chance I was ever going to be totally satisfied with this section of it. I'm gonna just chalk it up to that was basically an impossible task. Next, we're going to drive into Lubbock before heading over to Homeland Insecurity. For this album, they chose to include Come Back Down, Pretty Women, and Sleeping Alone. This album has a soft place in my heart because it was my initial introduction to Flatland Cavalry. Come Back Down and Sleeping Alone are absolutely essential on this track list in my opinion. Come Back Down is one of the best album intros I've ever heard, and Sleeping Alone is a standout song in their discography. Although I recognize Cleto's lyrical game on Pretty Women and appreciate that it offers some variety by being in 6/8 time, I don't necessarily think it would have been in my track list for this album. Personally, I think I would have rather had Ashes or Living by Moonlight or Honey Wine, but I might be in the minority here because I think this song is actually quite beloved among Flatland fans. Overall, they probably got this album right. I'm just sensitive about it because this album means a lot to me. Flatland Cavalry released 2 low-key, down-tempo singles following Homeland Insecurity, one of which was included in this album. War With My Mind was released in April 2020, and while I don't think it was specifically written about COVID, the fact that this song about mental health struggles came out at a time where, as a nation and as a world, we were all kind of having those mental health struggles as a result of isolation, social distancing, lockdown, and just the general fear and confusion around that period of time, it kind of accidentally captured that era of time perfectly. Of these 2 singles, I think I like Sober Heart of Mine a bit more, but if we're tracing the band's career through these songs, I think this represents a more important spot in their journey. Next, we're going to swing over to Welcome to Countryland with Some Things Never Change, Getting By, and Tilt Your Chair Back. I think they chose the right songs for this era. I could see a Cowboy Knows How as a substitute for Some Things Never Change, but I think they got this right. These songs have endured pretty well as like the standout tracks on this album and still are popular in the live show today, so yeah, I think they got this right. After Countryland, we go to Countryman, and then to Songs to Keep You Warm, where they chose to include Mountain Song, How Long, Parallel, and If We Said Goodbye. Songs to Keep You Warm is one of my favorite Flatland Cavalry projects, but it's also one of the shortest, so I was a little confused why they chose to include 4 of the 6 songs on this EP in this best of compilation. Personally, I wish they had given 4 songs to Humble Folks, but that aside, this is a really good selection of songs. In my view, Mountain Song and If We Said Goodbye were essentials for this era. The former because it was featured in Yellowstone, which drew a lot of new listeners to Flatland, and the second because it's just a striking, beautiful song with that string section. I'll be honest, I love every song off this EP, so for the other 2 songs, really they could have chosen any of the other 4 and I probably would have been satisfied, so overall I'm happy with this song selection. Next we go over to their most recent album, Wandering Star, where they chose to include the work tape of Mornings With You, along with the full studio version of Morning With You, Spinnin', and Don't Have to Do This Like That. I love that they included a demo of Mornings With You here, but I kinda wish they had picked one or the other. If there had been something about the lyrics or the musical composition that was radically different, then I would say yes, definitely include both of them. But because they're essentially the same song, just more fleshed out, it just feels like extra without giving you any additional context, really. It is cool that even as a work tape, it was still a duet. I'm not sure if that's Kaitlin's voice in the background or co-writer Ashley Monroe, but it definitely makes the final product feel a lot more intentional. I'll be honest though, I was a little disappointed that this was the only demo or alternate version on this album. That was a big part of the appeal to me when it was announced, and I would have liked to have heard more. I also would have liked to have seen The Last American Summer or The Provider on this section of the album in place of Don't Have to Do This Like That. Honestly though, I'm pretty lukewarm about the Wandering Star era overall. I like some of the songs, and the live show coming out of this was great, but I don't think this was their strongest album. Then finally, we conclude with Chasing a Feeling. I think the tracklist serves the purpose of trying to summarize their career and discography into a best of album. If I had my way, there are a few song choices I may have changed, but in the end, the track list of a best of album is never going to satisfy all listeners, and that's just kind of a thing that needs to be accepted. I also appreciate that this album features a healthy dose of Kaitlin Butts appearances. They were always done tastefully, and she is so central to this band's story that I'm glad they gave her some time to shine. I think Flatland Forever has something to offer for all levels of fan. For new fans, this is a great introduction to some of Flatland's best material and essential listens. At 25 songs though, it could potentially be intimidating to new fans, because it is quite a time commitment to sit down and listen to this full thing. Hardcore fans will enjoy the new tracks and demo, though they probably would have wanted to hear a bit more of this material included. Maybe a bonus disc is in order. But I think this album is perfect for somewhere in the middle of these two extremes. It's a strong helping of some of their best material. It's a bit hard to be too critical of this album because one, I do like it, and it's a convenient way to listen to a lot of great music, so it'll probably be going on in my car for many rides ahead. And two, because it's a compilation album, truth be told, it is kind of difficult to innovate in that format, and Flatland at least tries to do that in the way that they sequence the bonus tracks. Even though I fall into that hardcore fan category and personally would have liked to have heard more demos or alternate versions, I'm ultimately satisfied with the project that we got. And I would definitely recommend this album to anyone that's interested in exploring Flatland Cavalry's discography. I know I'll continue to be listening to it. What would be on your own Flatland Forever track list? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Brent Funkhauser from Red Moon Media. If you like this, please subscribe. I do all kinds of commentary related to alternative country, Americana, anything that kind of falls in that vein. I'll have more coming soon.